I'm John Geesman, an attorney for the Alliance for Nuclear Responsibility. Our interest is in the lease portion of your decision today, specifically paragraph 32. We thank your staff for vigorously standing up for the interests of all Californians in recreational access to coastal resources. We also thank Edison and the other plant owners for their acceptance of the language in paragraph 32 and hope that this represents an early inkling of awareness of the public's interest in the future recreational value of this site. I want to be very clear, our long-term objective is that once the site is fully decontaminated and released for unrestricted use by the NRC, that it will eliminate the bifurcation of the San Onofre State Park. The State Parks Department has indicated to the Navy its intention of seeking a new 50-year extension of the lease for the San Onofre State Park. It is our belief that the ultimate destination for this site, when it is fully decontaminated, will be the absorption by the state park. The star on the map comes from your EIR. When this plant operated, it was truly the star of the Southern California electrical system. We engineered the entire grid around its reliable operation, but it has not generated electricity for more than 7 years. Its usefulness is long since past. It currently represents a toxic, unsightly industrial carbuncle, and it appears to be universally held that it should be promptly and expeditiously removed as safety permits. There are a bundle of legal rights associated with the public's recreational interest in this site. One is the provision in the state constitution that guarantees a right to fish on public lands. A second is a court-determined right to swim, which all Californians have an entitlement to. A third is a constitutional right to freely navigate navigable waters. And finally, the public trust doctrine, which assures a right to all members of the public to access and use public trust resources. The current exclusion area boundary, documented in your EIR, ranges between 600 and 641 meters from the two domes, because that's where the reactors were. The requirement stems from NRC regulations of an operating nuclear power plant. That's no longer the case. Our recommendation, as reflected in paragraph 32, is that once the fuel is successfully transferred to dry casks, that the exclusion area be resized to meet NRC requirements for dry storage. I've drawn yellow dots along the offshore portion of the site, which would indicate where that exclusion area would apply. Right-sizing the exclusion area would significantly increase access to public trust resources. The area in pink is the portion of the exclusion area that would be freed up when Edison applies to the NRC for a shrunken exclusion area boundary. It's important to recognize that we face growing needs for access to coastal resources. Between the time the plant stopped operating and when Edison currently envisions full site restoration, we will have gained roughly a 27% increase in our population. Your action today represents an important first step in assuring the public is able to access those resources. We urge your approval of the proposed lease. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is this, yeah, I think this is the subject of the, one of the changes that, so yes. Maybe it's a good time just to quickly address it.
Yeah.
We won't stop at everything, but I think that Yeah.
Yes. So in response to the Alliance for Nuclear Responsibilities letter, we were able to negotiate a lease term with the applicant that addresses the offshore exclusion boundary issue. And so that is a part of the revised proposed lease. It is part of the record, and it is part of staff's recommendation already.
So that's going to then allow more access off the beach as part of the decommissioning
That's
process.
the first step, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
And that same issue, I just wanted to clarify, it's just the offshore exclusion. We don't have an ability to restrict or the onshore because that's owned by the Navy, right?
Excuse me. In terms of what actually occurs, what the Navy at the conclusion of the decommissioning, the dismantling, and the decontamination, and the future use of the site, that is a decision by the Navy and the Coastal Commission.
Okay.
What the lease provision 32 provides is that at the conclusion of the transfer of the spent nuclear fuel to the ISFAC, the lessee shall seek approval from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to decrease the sizes of the exclusion area boundary to the minimum required by law. So that would, in theory, apply to the upland too.
Oh, it would, okay.
And then in addition to that, the lease provision also requires that the lessee, the applicant, and the State Lands Commission jointly consult with the Coastal Commission to ensure that the Coastal Commission's permit conditions are complied with towards that end.